Well, it's always a treat to get to revisit some of those classic comforting recipes we enjoy. And what better time to make these cozy meals than when the weather starts to get kind of chilly. I'm sharing 2 recipes today that is sure to fill your kitchen and your home with warmth and love. I am so glad that you're here. If we haven't met, my name is Ange and this is the Menu Made Kitchen. Well, this first recipe I'm sharing with you is a classic shepherd's pie. I feel like the only time I really ever made shepherd's pie was during the holidays when I had leftovers. And while you can use some of your leftovers from your holiday meal, this recipe is just as easy to put together from scratch. So I am preparing our potatoes for our classic shepherd's pie, which I just can't think of a more cozy and comforting meal than shepherd's pie. I am using Yukon Gold potatoes and we're doing like 4 medium size. So we're gonna end up with probably 4-ish, 5 cups or so of cubed potatoes. Once I get these diced up, we are gonna transfer them into a pot with some cold water and start getting them on the stove and boiling, and then we can work on our meat filling. We have our potatoes in some cold water and I cut them in like 1-inch cubes. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm gonna add some salt to it, about a teaspoon, and then we're gonna bring this to a boil. We're gonna cook the potatoes about 10 to 15 minutes until they're fork tender. Meanwhile, we will head over to our other pan and start getting our meat filling going. So for our filling, we are gonna start by browning some ground beef, and this is lean ground beef, 1 pound. Shepherd's pie used to intimidate me a little bit, not because it was hard, but because it seemed like it was a lot of work. But when you start with the right steps, it actually comes together fairly quickly. So while the potatoes are cooking, we can do the meat filling, and then everything will come together after that. This looks good. So we are gonna add a cup of diced yellow onion, and then I have a large garlic clove that I minced. So we'll saute our onions and garlic for a few minutes. And our potatoes are good and boiling, so I went ahead and set my timer for about 10 minutes and then we'll check them. I also want to note that I am preheating the oven to 400, so I just turned that on to get that going. Onions are looking good, so let's add in some flavor. I have 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire. And then for our seasonings, we've got 1 teaspoon each of Italian seasoning, parsley, and then 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, salt, and pepper. Next, we are going to add in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. We are doing 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'm going to mix all of this together. I want to make sure there aren't any clumps of tomato paste or flour in here. And then we'll start adding in our liquid. So for our liquid, we are doing 1/2 cup of beef broth. And then I'm going to do 1/2 cup of red wine, which I had on hand. If you don't have it on hand, just use more beef stock. We're also going to add in 1 cup of our frozen veggies, peas and carrots, or any kind of frozen veggies that you enjoy or have on hand. And then we'll just take our spoon and kind of scrape up all that stuff. So at this point, we just want to warm everything through. The mixture is already nice and thick. It almost kind of reminds me of the sloppy joe texture. I'm going to turn off the heat. I just heard the timer go off for my potatoes. I'm going to check those. And once those are finished, we will start getting those prepared. Our potatoes still have about 4 minutes left. I just checked them. I'm going to go ahead and start with this. That way we are all ready to go once the potatoes are done. So I've got a 9x9 baking dish here, and I did spray it with nonstick cooking spray. We're going to go ahead and add our meat filling down. And we'll let it hang out there while we work on our potatoes. Okay, you'll just want to spread it out into a nice little even layer here. That looks good. Potatoes are nice and tender. So I drained them and I let them set for like a minute. And the only reason I'm not mashing them in the same bowl that I cooked them in is because it's a nonstick pan and I don't want to scratch it up. So to our steamy potatoes, we are going to add in 1/4 cup of butter. And then I have a 1/3 cup of half and half, and this is at room temperature, or you can use whole milk or 2% milk. We are going to add in 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. What's cool about potatoes for shepherd's pie is you can honestly add flavors that you love. Roasted garlic, different seasonings. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I am going to be adding some cheese, but I really want the filling to shine and I want to be able to taste the potato flavor. Now I'm going to use my trusty masher, but you can use like an electric hand mixer, or if you have a potato ricer thing to make them even finer. I'm going to try and get them as smooth as possible. I think these are good and mashed up. Get me a spoon. We'll just start with this, right? The last ingredient going in, I'm going to use 1/4 cup of Italian cheese blend. I wanted to keep this pretty simple, so I just got a bag at the grocery store. But you can do Parmesan cheese, sharp cheddar cheese, or if you don't want to use any cheese, but I really like this blend and I think it's going to add great flavor. I am going to give the potatoes a little taste to make sure we don't need any more seasoning. I remember when my dad was alive, he used to come into the kitchen when my mom was cooking and he'd put his fork or spoon into whatever she was making. He's like, I got to try it because I got to make sure it's not poisonous. Do you remember that when you were a kid? Oh yeah, those are some fantastic mashed potatoes. So let me grab our filling, and you guessed it, we are gonna pile these potatoes on top of all the amazing meat filling. Wowza, this just looks so good. Can't even wait. So we are gonna bake this at 400 degrees uncovered for about 30 to 35 minutes. I might stick it under the broiler and kind of brown up the top, we'll see, but maybe add a little bit of parsley. Other than that, it is going to be ready to dive into. Okay, we'll see you back here in just a little bit. Oh my goodness. I mean, it does not get any better than that when it comes to comfort food. I wanted to note too, we have the holidays coming up and usually there are leftover mashed potatoes and other ingredients, so it's the perfect time of year to make a shepherd's pie with leftovers. But this was just as easy to put together from scratch, not having all of those things. So once it comes out of the oven, you're going to want to let it set for like 10 minutes. That will help the filling on the bottom to kind of set up, and it makes it much easier to slice so that it's not falling apart when you dish it up. All right, here we go. What is not to love about this? That filling is so rich. Adding that tomato paste, and then I really think that the red wine just gives it more depth. You don't have to do that, but it really just takes it up a little level. And the creamy mashed potatoes with that Italian cheese blend gives it kind of some saltiness. If you are wanting to revisit some classic comfort foods, this is your guy right here. Well, this next recipe I'm sharing with you is a chicken stuffing casserole, which is perfect for a cozy, chilly night. It is so hearty and satisfying. It will definitely fill up your belly. But what's great about it is you use pre-cooked chicken, so you could even get a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store and make it really easy. And then of course the boxed stuffing mix makes it simple as well. This is also another great recipe to make during the holidays when you have leftovers. So make sure to save both of these recipes. When the holidays come around, you've got some ideas for how to use up your leftovers. So to start off our chicken stuffing casserole, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of butter to my skillet. And I am using an oven-safe skillet because we're going to end up assembling everything into this one pan and it going in the oven. And if you don't have an oven-safe skillet, you can just transfer everything into a casserole dish. To our melted butter, I'm going to add in 3/4 cup of diced onion. We have a 1/2 cup of diced carrots, a 1/2 cup of celery, and then I'm using a small sweet potato that I've diced, but you could do a russet potato if you don't like sweet potato. I just felt like the sweetness would be really good with all the savoriness of the stuffing, and then the filling, of course, will be super savory with the seasonings. So we need to get our veggies sauteed, and we'll let these cook maybe 5 minutes or so. I definitely want to soften the carrots and the sweet potatoes a bit before we pull everything together. And I went ahead and made the stuffing ahead of time. All I did was follow the directions on the back. We added some butter and water to a pot, and then you throw in your mix once it comes to a boil, pull it off the heat, and fluff it with a fork. It's very easy. So whatever brand you end up using, just follow the directions on the back. So now we're gonna add in some garlic. I have 1 large garlic clove. I'm gonna stir that around for a second. And then we need to add in some flour. I have 2 tablespoons. We'll cook this for a minute. And then we need to add 1.5 cups of chicken broth. I'm gonna turn up the heat just a little bit. I wanna bring this to a simmer and just get this bubbling a bit. You'll kind of start to see it get thicker. And then we're going to turn the heat down and then add in some of our other ingredients. I'm going to stir in 1 cup of half and half. I'm also going to add in a 1/4 cup of sour cream. And then for our seasonings, I have 1 teaspoon of dried mustard, kosher salt, and thyme. And then I have a 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary and black pepper. You can certainly add your chicken at this time, but I'm going to go ahead and stir this together first. I am adding 2.5 cups of cooked chicken that I've diced. I'm going to simmer this for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, not too long, and then we'll add our stuffing topping. I pulled this off the heat, and now we're going to add our stuffing. And basically, you just kind of want to sprinkle the stuffing mix over the top of everything. And like I mentioned, this would be a great recipe to make with your leftovers from the holidays. Your stuffing, your turkey, all your veggies. Well, that looks great. So I have my oven heating at 375, and we're gonna bake this uncovered for about 25 minutes. We want the top to get nice and golden and toasty. And after that, we'll let it set for a few minutes and it is ready to serve. Talk about comforting. This is totally off subject, but you know how when you open up the oven and you get that blast of heat, sometimes you gotta like stand back first? Well, I didn't. And I feel like some of my eyelashes got melted off. Like I can see there's like little beads of, I don't even know, but it just feels weird when I blink. I don't think you can see it in the camera, but nonetheless, you know, it's hard work cooking in the kitchen and it's a tough job, but this is the best part. We get to try this together and it just smells so delicious and savory in here. Perfect for this cozy fall day. So the top gets nice and crisp, like I mentioned, and then the filling thickens up. It absorbs into some of the stuffing that sits on top of it. I think it's just gonna be so good. All right, here we go. Okay. Oh my word, is this yummy. And you know what? Those sweet potatoes in there are perfection. Like the sweetness of them, you can hardly tell, but there's just a little something in there. And then of course the carrots have a little bit of sweetness, but all that savory stuffing and the creamy filling. What a hearty and comforting dish to enjoy this winter. I'm very excited to have this. And this would be a great one to make for company, especially on a rainy day. Make a side salad. It would be fantastic and everyone would love it. Another comforting classic in the books. You have to make this one. Make sure to join me in this next video. I share more cozy recipes. I'm so glad we got to spend time together today. I look forward to seeing you next time.